Welcome to the Edu20 podcast, where we work to simplify education. And I am your host, Shannon Street, joined by
her sidekick, busy being witty and pretty, Courtney Dumas. Little Taylor Swift reference there for you.
Yeah, I like that
Please
a lot.
don't sue me, Taylor.
No, we are here to talk about all things simplifying education. Now, I know on most education podcasts, you get a lot of scientific research. You get some of the most up-to-date, best practices, things that are happening in the education world. And Courtney, are we exactly like that?
We're just not those people. If you came here looking for cerebral things, you are in the wrong place. I know it sounds terrible, but we're here to be practical and we're here to be simple. We don't have time for more data. We look at a lot of data. We don't have time for more research-based thing. Like, we're going to tell you what worked for us, and we're going to tell you stories, because who doesn't love a good narrative?
And we're going to tell you what's working with the current teachers and leaders that we're working with, and what we're seeing in actual classrooms. So we're here to give you all the practical, real knowledge that we have, and a lot of the funny stories along the way.
And the whole reason why we sit here is not because we've figured it all out. It's because we did it all wrong first, and then we figured out what not to do.
Exactly.
So now we have learned, we know better, we're doing better, and we're trying to help other people do better. That's why we're here. So we're going to jump into some really nerdy conversation, not cerebral, nerdy, two different things. In my bearing, at least.
I mean, I do like a little bit of the cerebral side sometimes, but we won't bring that to you. We'll save the research for later. What topic are we going to be talking about today, Courtney?
We're going to be talking about lesson framing.
Okay. Framing is she's doing the Vogue if you can't see her.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, you're really missing out on my dance moves.
All right. What do you mean by framing? When I think of the word framing, I think scaffolding or like picture frames. Like, what do you mean by lesson framing?
Well, there is a reason, like, you know how everyone says, oh, the foundation is the most important thing you can do for a house or for building a foundation for children's literacy. The foundation's important, but guess what doesn't happen without framing the foundation? You have to frame it first before you can even lay that foundation. So when I'm talking about lesson framing, I am talking about basically introducing your lesson and what it's going to look and sound like and why you're doing what you're doing. That kind of sets your students up for success. That sets teachers up for success. It just makes the general outline of the learning a little bit more clear.
Okay. So why are you so passionate about this? Like, what does it look like? How do you do it, and why? Talk to me about you and I were having a quick chat during our workout yesterday.
I don't talk to her during our workouts.
Yes, she does. We were having a quick chat about your third period class of the day. Tell us about it.
My gosh. Okay. First and foremost, I'm going to tell you why I'm passionate about this, and then I'll tell you about my third hour class.
Okay, let's go.
The reason why I'm passionate about this is because my students always ask me two questions more than any other questions when they were in my classroom.
Okay.
The first one is what they always ask. Is this for a grade? And of course, the answer is always yes, even though it's really not. So they always just ask me if that's for a grade. Mm-hmm. The second most asked question was, Ms. Dumas, why I got to do this? It was always, why I got to do this? And I've come to realize that if I don't frame my lesson correctly, that's why they're asking why I got to do this. If they didn't know why they were doing what they were doing, it didn't make sense. And so I'm passionate about this because I lead PD now, and I've been in PD before where I was asking myself why I got to do this because it felt like it was compliance instead of coherence toward a goal of some sort.
Okay, you just teed me up too perfectly here before you tell us the story of your third period class. I said we were going to talk about the nerdy research, but actually there is a lot of brain science that says that is why kids come in and ask, because their brains are looking for patterns and something to hold on to. And that's why they ask the question that irritates us every day. It's also, what are we doing today? I mean, we're doing math today, or we're doing social studies today, but their brains are looking for patterns and the why. So it's what are we doing and why do we have to do it? So I can see why you're passionate about it, because it's why kids ask the questions they ask.
Well, think about when you're in a PD or when we have people in PD. When you first get in there, you're looking for any kind of clue as to what are the objectives?
Why are we here?
What is the agenda for the day? When is lunch? You know,
that's the important question.
Absolutely. But you're right. The pattern piece, data or not, I think when we go into new situations, we're always looking for patterns.
Right.
And so if your framing is very well done and it's repeated, it makes it feel more comfortable for your students. It makes it easier on you because your kids know that there's a predictable structure to your lesson intro, all the things. Now, let me tell you about my third period class. Okay. Y'all, did you ever feel like your third period class got more information than your first period class?
I tried to always schedule my observations, the scheduled ones, during third period because by then I had figured it out.
Okay, so when you say figured it out, what do you mean by that?
I think I knew I knew the flow of the lesson a lot better.
So exactly. If I really think through my lesson and I understand the framing, I understand the coherence, it makes it easier to frame as the day goes on.
So you mean you mean the structure of a lesson?
Absolutely, but your framing kind of reveals I feel like the framing isn't just at the beginning though. So I'm going to go to that too.
I like it.
You are framing at the beginning, but you constantly refer back to that why and that what and that how, because that's how you make the lesson coherent. A lot of times when especially with high quality instructional materials, we are just going activity, check, next activity, check, next activity, check. And the kids are just thinking, okay, the teacher's teaching me this so she can get through the lesson or he can get through the lesson. But really, there's a reason why those activities are in there. It's building towards something. But if I, as a teacher, don't know that, my students definitely don't know that. And I felt like when I got to third period, by that time it clicked like, oh, so that's why that's in there.
So I think what you're saying is instead of just using that word framing, I think what you're saying is you intentionally communicate the purpose of the lesson, like exactly what they're going to be learning, why they're learning it, but you keep connecting it throughout.
Absolutely. And sometimes there were things in my curriculum where I was like, I don't even know why that's in there. And then when the kids did it, I was like, that makes sense. And a lot of times when you're first learning a curriculum, you're not going to know. But by third period, you will know. But framing is so important because I have to do the work as a teacher first to be able to frame my lesson. And so if I'm not doing proper planning on the front end, I definitely can't lead my students through the what, the why, and the how during the lesson. So that's like step number one is I have to understand what do I want my kids to learn? You know, like what is my objective today? And then of course, like how am I going to check to see if they learned it? And then I have to be able to explain it. Why are we doing this? What is this going to move them toward? And it kind of goes back to, if you didn't listen to this episode, go check out the one about coaching toward goals or moving toward goals, goal setting in general. Because if your students know, hey, we're supposed to end up here and we need to have this knowledge and this skill, I can explain throughout my lesson, hey, y'all remember on this end task, we have to know how to do this. So today in class, we're practicing that. That is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
It's seeing the big picture and showing the kids the big picture and then taking them through the little steps to get to the big picture.
So I have a really big question for you though. How do we do it? Because the biggest need that we have in teaching is time. So how do we do this in a way where it doesn't feel like it's extra lesson planning? What can we do to set ourselves up if this is so important for kids' brains and orienting them in the lesson? What steps can we take to make it easier on ourselves?
First and foremost, have the same structure to your lesson every day.
Every single day.
I mean, and visuals always help. If a kid comes in, I mean, think about it as an adult, when you go into your collaborative planning room, you usually know where the agenda is, or you know where something's going to be written on the board. Kids do the same thing. So having things in the same place, the visuals, or something as simple as the same structure, it brings them comfort and helps them understand what it's going to look and sound like. So I think that's one thing. And it doesn't have to be this big thing at the beginning of the lesson. Remember in college when they were like, oh, your anticipatory set, it has to take this. Like, y'all, this is maybe 2 minutes of your lesson.
At the beginning of the lesson.
And then of course you're referring back to it, but that's just to make connections like amidst the activities.
Yeah.
So it's planning for that, understanding it yourself so you can get kids through that, but making it fast. And you want to talk about this, the best way that you can do this as a leader, because a lot of times we've noticed in our PDs, we try to model the kinds of behaviors and skills that we want teachers to use in their classrooms. So as leaders, that's a great thing for you to do in your PLCs, your PDs. I don't know if, early dismissal days, whatever y'all do, make sure that you have correct framing for your learning. Explain to the teachers, this is what we're doing today. This is why we're doing it. Otherwise, it sometimes has taken me in PDs to get people back into the learning. If I didn't frame it correctly, it's taken like 45 minutes. Like if people don't understand why they're there, they just think, oh, the district signed me up for something, they're lost. But if I know why the district signed them up for that, or
Right.
if I know, if I've been in the classrooms and I know the why, and I can verbalize that and communicate it to the teachers, then they are a lot more bought into the learning because they see there's a need for it. And that's how it is with your students. You've got to show them why we're doing this. There is a need for this. This is why we're learning this to get to this.
Are there any other educators out there with us who have had a little bit of PD trauma? That is why we have a goal at Edu 2020. All of our PDs, we do try to have that structure. We set it up for through all those steps. Here's what we're doing, why we're doing it. We set the need, and then we do try to model the exact type of activities, the thinking structures that we want to have for a lesson into our PDs. And then we also close it out. We have to close those brain loops at the end of the lesson. You have to go back and land, because sometimes I'm thinking about my sixth graders. They couldn't remember, sometimes where the classroom was in the middle of the day. That they get lost a lot. But closing that learning loop, here was what we did, here's why we did it, and then connecting it to tomorrow's lesson. Here's what we're going to be doing with this information later. Our team has created some resources for teachers, just even a simple slide deck that you just repeat every day. The certain slides are repeated. And I actually saw somebody using something similar in a social studies classroom last week. He started his lesson by of course, his objectives. Here's what we're going to be learning today. And then he immediately, the next slide was, here's what you're going to need. So the students immediately pulled out what they needed. And then here's why we're going to be learning it. And he connected it to, there was a chapter question they were going to be answering by the end of the chapter. And he connected it to that. And then they got into the activities. And on one of the activities, he said, here is how this is going to help us answer this question by the end of the chapter. This is one of the clues. And then by the end, he closed out the lesson. He was very strategic. And I was like, I wish I'd been that good, because he was like, so this is what we learned today. This is why we're going to be learning it. And tomorrow, and he kind of left him on a cliffhanger. He was like, do you think that they're going to win the war based on the mistakes that were made? And so the kids chatted about it real fast. And it was just a beautifully executed lesson so that all the pieces were very coherent.
Absolutely. And I think that lesson framing piece and the internal summaries, you mentioned kind of like stopping at one place and saying, okay, so, we've done this and this. Why do we do that? The internal summary piece is really helpful. But that also goes back to like your teachers have to know, like as a teacher, I have to know what knowledge am I building and what am I working toward? So I know when we plan our PDs, we look at, what do we want teachers to be able to know and do as a result of this PD? That's what you can ask yourself when you're planning your lessons. What do I want students to be able to know and do as a result of this lesson? And then from there, that explains to them, like, why are we doing what we're doing? Because we want to get to here. Like all of that should be building. But if I can't see the forest through the trees, then I'm going to have a problem.
And the easiest way to do this is to just set up a pattern that works for you. Whether you're a classroom teacher or whether you are a leader who's leading collaborative planning sessions, have a routine and a pattern, because again, it just simplest is always scalable. So you are more likely to do it if you set your system up to make it easy, just to plug in those elements every day.
Yeah.
Same for PLC planning.
When I don't want people that are listening to think too, this is just the teacher talking at the students.
No.
This is really having them kind of frame their brains, prime their brains for what they're about to learn. You could introduce the lesson and then say, okay, so how is that getting us toward that question or that goal? Let them kind of take some ownership in that. But again, like you have to know where you're going and why you're going there to make sure they know that. And so it's not just about us talking, because we've even done that. We adjust our PDs all the time. It drives our team crazy because we were adaptive.
She means it drives me crazy. But yes, it's because we are adaptive.
And sometimes, in our framing, I felt like we were talking too much. At the beginning of a PD, it's awkward. It's just kind of like a blind date, right? You're like, hi, this is who I am. This is what I'm here to do. And people are like, I have to be here against my will. So we had to really think about, how can we communicate the purpose of this PD and what we're going to be doing today efficiently and effectively, but also have them own that why and kind of talk about it. So don't think that the framing is just about you talking. It's really about students understanding what they're doing and why they're there that day. And if you make that clear, everything else is going to be flowing a lot more coherently, and you won't get the question, why I got to do this today. Your first hour class will be just like your third hour class if you can get this framing right, and think through it first so you can get your kids through it.
And if you're a newer teacher, or that you're somebody who might not like I'm very structured. You know me, I like to be organized and very
Oh my
structured
God.
with repeated
That
patterns.
is so shocking.
But if that's something that you really want to improve on, I would suggest just start small, just by landing and just have 1 or 2 slides at the beginning of your lesson, or some type of anchor chart or something that just says, here's what we're going to learn today, and here's why we're going to be learning it. And then at the end of your lesson, just go back and recap. Here's what we learned today. Here's why we're going to be learning it. And here's how it connects. And then when you get really good at that, then you can start throughout the lesson. Remember, this is why we're learning this, and look at the connections you're making, which takes us to the next activity, and start putting those pieces together so that it feels natural. It's going to take some practice, but it really makes the learning land, and it's so much more impactful if students can turn around and say, hey, this is what we learned today.
We actually did. I'm going to tell a quick story because I know we're running out of time. We did an experiment on this. One year we were focusing on the impact of communicating the learning objectives to students. And so one week we videoed students and we asked them at the end of the day, we were like, so, what'd you learn today? And some of y'all have kids that are listening right now. When I ask my kids, how was school today? What'd you learn? I don't know. It was good.
Right.
That's exactly what we videoed them. And that's, I learned to read. I learned about
So you all were
reading.
videoing kids and
We were
asking them
videoing
what they did?
Yeah, we were videoing and asking what they did today, and they were like, Well, then we implemented, communicating the learning target or learning objective to them, and we filmed them again, and the kids were actually able to remember what they learned in class and explain why they learned it.
Yeah.
And that seemed so basic, but just making something clear like that, like, hey, here is why we're here. It's so powerful. And leaders, whether you're a teacher or you're a leader listening to this right now, please use this framing in anything. Anytime I'm in a new situation, it's great for me to have some kind of framing. Even filming a podcast. This is why we're here today. This is what we're doing. We're trying to make it as clear as possible so you know what you're getting ready to listen to. But framing is critical. And she mentioned some resources we have on our website. We have a blog, edu2020.com. We have a blog on framing, a nerdy blog. I think I wrote it last year, but it's still,
it applies.
Works today. Yeah. So check that out if you want to know more about my beliefs in framing, because this is really powerful stuff that helps bring more coherence to your classroom.
And if you are one of those teachers like me who used to get really frustrated when they would make me write my standards and my objectives on the board for the day, and I would just write like 10 objectives or standards and just keep them up all the time so I didn't have to keep redoing it.
Until that kid drew the line through your whiteboard and you were like,
right. Just try practicing it, just orienting the kids' brains. If you think more about making it about the student learning than just compliance of writing those standards up, if you can answer the question, why are we doing this lesson today? How is it going to get my kids to their learning targets? And if you can get the kids to understand that, it started making a difference, and it quit being a compliance thing for me and less frustration. And I quit trying to just game the system. So try it out. Let us know what you think about it. See how your kids do. We love to hear your success stories with it.
You just saying gaming the system, I think that's going to be an entire after hours episode. So speaking of which, if you have not liked or subscribed to our podcast, you're going to want to check out the after hours episodes as well as these episodes. So if you haven't done so before, go ahead and check it out. Like, subscribe, give us feedback, leave some interact with us in the comments.
Let us know what else you want to hear about.
Yeah. Or what are some things you do